Beautiful souls, do you have a prayer request or want us to send you healing energy today? Would you like us to be praying for your friend or loved one? If this is you, go to worldslargestprayernetwork.com to submit your prayer request. And while you're there, please sign up to join our team of prayer warriors. The angels say prayer not only opens you to miracles, raises your vibration, and helps you heal, but the more you pray, the more God's presence is felt on earth. Feel your angels' love as they surround you right now, and listen for the positive, loving messages your angels intended specifically for you in today's episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius. And today we have Jenna with us. She's going to share some personal angel stories and also one that came through one of her patients. And I know that you're just going to love and resonate with this story so much. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to share this story with you guys. I want to preface this first story by saying I'm 29 now, but when I was 26, I started going through like a spiritual awakening. And I work as a critical care nurse. And so this happened at work. But recently, there was a girl that went to my high school, and her husband died, who was 29, and she was pregnant with their first kid. So, like we do, I was asking for my dad, spirit guides, God, universe, source, to just give me a sign that she was going to be okay, knowing that Billy crossed and, she's about to have this baby. So I literally wrote in my gratitude journal the night before, please send me a sign that Billy's going to be okay and send love to Hillary. And then this happened. So I work in a cardiac ICU where we work with open heart surgical patients. And my first patient of the day, she was a post-op day 1. So that means she had surgery the day before. I walked on to shift and I could hear this patient talking like a mile a minute. She had something we called magical thinking. We use the terms alert and oriented in the medical world. So they're alert, they know that they're awake and they know who they are, they know where they are and why they're there. And she didn't have any of that. So her eyes were wide open and she was talking a lot. She was saying things like, oh, I've been to Mars, I haven't been to Jupiter, my bra size is this on my right breast and this on my left breast, and like going on and on and on and on. And so I was like, okay, whatever. Like I started doing my assessment and charting. And then all of a sudden these crazy wild thoughts that she was having turned into, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Somebody help me. I'm going to die. In the medical field, if you hear someone say they're going to die or have like some sort of impending doom, you grab the code card. It's the first thing that you do, which I wanted to bring up to you because I thought you would find that interesting.
Yeah.
So I called for my friend Brandon down the hall. I was like, Brandon, can you bring me the code card? So she's sitting there, with this impending doom. And then sure enough, she goes into a grand mal seizure. So a grand mal seizure is the kind that you'd see like on TV. It's the big jerking and they lose consciousness. She was jerking so much that I had to hold her down because I thought she was literally going to bounce off the side rail, like over the side rail of the bed. I remember thinking like it was just so aggressive. We did the whole thing and turn her on the side. You get the tongue out of the mouth. One thing that happened before this that I wanted to point out too is like all my lines stopped working. So like my IV stopped working, my blood pressure monitoring line stopped working, even my Foley catheter like started leaking. Like everything just wasn't going right in the room. So, and then this seizure happened. And it lasted maybe like 2 minutes. And usually after people have a seizure, they go through something called the postictal phase, which is, they're kind of agitated, a little lethargic, confused, tired, kind of grumpy. This lady, I kid you not, 1 second she was seizing. And then the next second she sat right up and she looked me right in the face and she said, when am I going to see my surgeon? And I was just like, we were all dumbfounded in the room. There was like 5 of us in the room, like responding to this seizure. And she just started talking normally, like that, all that confusion and delirium that she had was gone. No more magical thinking. And I was like, can you tell me where you are? What did you have done? She passed everything. And so everyone leaves the room, and then the code cart's dragged out, and it's just me and her. And she looks at me and she goes, geez, I'll never do that again. And I said, do what again? And she said she used to drive by churches and flip them off. And
Oh,
I was like, okay, like, why do you say that? And she said, oh, I just met Jesus and he asked me if I wanted to come back. And I said, yes. And so I'm like standing there, and then her family's in the room and they're staring at me, like looking for guidance. And I didn't know what to do. So I told a little white lie. And I said, oh, we hear that stuff in critical care all the time. Like, that's normal. And I got out of the room, and I was like, okay, I need to process this. So I go out and I tell my coworkers, and it's different in the medical field. I feel like some people are spiritually aware and some people aren't. So majority of the people who were on that day were just like, oh, she's crazy. She's crazy. And I was like, okay, there's a reason this patient was given to me. I'm going to go investigate. So I went back in the room and I said, excuse me, like, tell me exactly what happened. Like, can you walk me through the process that just happened with you? And she said, yeah. So she entered when she started dreaming, and she explains going up a escalator, and the whole time she's going up the escalator, all she can talk about, or even think about, is the brightness, the love, and the warmth that she's experiencing. And she emphasized that like 5 times. She got to the top of the escalator and she saw a man who she believes is Jesus, and like all of her family members behind her, like her grandparents, her aunts, her uncles. And then this is the kicker: Jesus was holding a baby, who was her stillborn son, and she was able to speak to him for the first time, and he was fine, and they were showing her that he was taken care of on the other side. And she got to say hi to all of her family members. And that's when Jesus asked her, you can stay here with us, or if you feel like you still have stuff to do on the other side, we can send you back. And she said that she made the choice to come back. And that's when she woke up and we were all standing around her in the room. And I don't know, I just had to share that story with you immediately. But I just thought it was so weird that the night before I had asked for like a big sign to know that my friend's husband would be okay. And then that had happened. Out of all the nurses that were on the floor and all the patients I could have had, I had that experience with her. Oh, the other thing she did say, which I didn't want to forget too, is Jesus showed her life in a bubble. She saw
yes.
everything flash before, like in the bubble.
Yes.
And she said she saw everything she did, everything she accomplished, felt all the feelings in an instant, but it still didn't feel like it was done. So that's why she decided to come back.
Oh, like, I don't even know where to begin. There's just so much here.
Mhm.
There are so many stories and people who say that, and I've seen it so many times in my session that I just know it to be 100% fact that there is a way through connecting with your higher self when you're still here on earth, through just when we're on the other side as souls too, to be able to hold energies of an entire lifetime or millennia or time periods that we can't even think about, and just hold them and feel them and know every single moment of all of it within an instant. And I don't think our brains can even process or fathom what that is, but that's how it works over there. I do. Okay, so what was magical thinking? What is that term, and why do people use that in the nursing field?
So magical thinking is like when people are arranging a bunch of sentences, like rambling, and none of the categories of the sentences kind of line up. So like she was talking about, oh, she went to Mars, but not Jupiter. And then one of her boobs is bigger than the other. And like like all these mismatched conversations. And I kid you not, this woman, like you couldn't get a word in. She was so out there in her mind. Like she did not know she was having these conversations with me, or the rest of the team. She didn't know what she was saying. She has no recollection of it either after. Um, I don't know why exactly it happens. For her sake, we were assuming it was the reaction to anesthesia because she had anesthesia less than 24 hours ago. And then also she had like some electrolyte imbalances. Sometimes when you have really low sodium, you can get confused and delirious. But I had never seen it to the degree that this lady was displaying. Usually it's just like, oh, like what's that person doing over there in the corner? And they're like seeing stuff. But this lady was flat out.
It makes me
Constant.
wonder, yeah, it makes me wonder like if as people are going through the death process, that maybe chemicals are shifting around in the brain and stuff is like where I wonder if people are able to physically get to this place of almost like psychedelics, right? Because sometimes that happens, doesn't it, with
That's
psychedelics?
interesting. Yeah, that would be a great point. I mean, it only makes sense if you're able, because you must have to be able to use a different part of your brain.
Right. And like, I would imagine that through the process of actually dying, something is happening within the physical body. I'm just making this up where different levels are shifting and the levels aren't where they normally are. So maybe something is happening there. That's really wild.
I feel like
Um,
that would be something worth looking into.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, no, for sure. Um, and then I thought it was really fascinating. You said if in the medical field as a nurse, if a patient says they're going to die, the first thing you are told to do is grab the code cart.
There's something about impending doom. So usually it's impending doom where you grab the code card, or if they start seeing loved ones on the other side. Um, they don't talk about this a lot, but it's very interesting. And I told the surgery team what had happened after this whole thing had kind of fizzled out. And I was talking to the nurse practitioner, and she said if she starts seeing people on the other, like her family members who have passed, grab the code card again and call us. And it's just as normal as that in the medical field. You're like, okay, yeah, I will.
But doesn't that prove something? Doesn't that prove that science really does trust the patient's intuition?
Yes, yes. And it's funny because the nurses who don't or not super interested in this kind of stuff, they won't um kind of humor the idea, but the sec of seeing loved ones on the other side and then grabbing the code card. But if you ask them, hey, if your patient's having impending doom, would you grab the code card? 9.9 out of 10 nurses would say yes. Well, I would grab the code card. And
That
that's
is
how
fascinating.
I've seen a lot of codes on my floor because it's a cardiac ICU. And by code, we mean like having your heart stop doing CPR, defibrillating. I would say the patients who are conscious before almost always have the impending doom feeling. Hmm.
Wow. And then I love that the story ties together. It wasn't just an angel story where you just heard this randomly. Like you were praying this prayer for a friend and just really wanting to find peace in your heart that she was going to be okay. And then this patient returns from a near death experience, which I'm sure doesn't happen every day. Like you just don't see that
No,
every
and I
day.
totally lied to the family, and I feel bad because I didn't know what to say in the moment. They were looking for me for comfort, and I was like, "Yeah, this happens a lot on the critical care unit." I didn't know what to say, and I like left the room numb. I was like, "Okay, where do I start with this? Like, what would Julie want me to do?" So then I was like, "Go back and ask her all my questions." But it's funny because I saw her like 3 days later, and she was doing fine. And I asked him, like, "Do you remember what happened the other day? And like the story that you had told me?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you still never going to flip off churches?" And she said, "Never again." And her husband did. In fact, he validated. He's like, she literally would drive by a church and flip it off. So she wasn't lying at that either. So I thought that was really cool. I was able to check back in with her, and see where she stood, and she didn't rub it off as like a dream or like a weird thing that happened. Like it was still firm in her mind, like this happened for a reason and this is real. So
Wow. Wow,
mhm.
wow. So one thing that often happens for people in sessions is there are what they call ascended masters on the other side. So Jesus was an ascended master, Buddha was an ascended master, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene. There are ascended masters from every single religion, and they do come through. But I think it's so cool that, Jesus was the one that showed up for her, maybe to concretely.
That's interesting because she told me she was raised as a strict Catholic,
Yes.
and had a not the best experience. So then after she became atheist, and that's what she practiced until she had that experience. So it makes sense that of all people, it would have been Jesus who came.
Yeah. Yeah, because the damage was done there, and so he's coming around to heal that damage and that wound within her being. Um, and that he was holding her son.
Mm-hmm. Her husband
Amazing.
froze when she said that. Yeah, you could tell, like, there is goosebumps all throughout the room.
There are moments in life where these huge, huge validators happen, just like this story. And and you just have this concrete faith and foundation. Like that nobody could ever talk you out of it. Like that wasn't something. It was tangible. It's almost something like you could reach out and touch. It was so real.
And it was even more so real. I wish I could explain to you and show you like the equipment that was breaking in the room before, because there was like no reason for that equipment to be breaking. And my charge nurse was in there helping me, trying to like fix some of the lines and like see if we could get another read on the computer screen. And then that happened, and then all of a sudden my lines were working after. It was like she was literally being taken from me, and there was nothing I could do because here I was trying to fidget and fix everything, and I couldn't
Yeah.
because there was something greater in the room. But I also find it really interesting too. Like I know my dad is on the other side, and he's whenever people say that he's sorry that he passed, I always respond with, don't be, he's super present. And it always like shocks them, but like I know he's over there.
Yeah.
But when something traumatic like what happened to my friend happens, you like yearn for something more. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I know you're over there, Dad, but I need to know that Billy's over there. Like, you know what I mean? And so I just found it so interesting that even though you already have your experiences and your knowledge, that they're still willing to step it up a notch for you when you need it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool experience too.
It's one of the questions that I get the most is, or people make statements like, Julie, my spirit team must be so frustrated with me because I continually ask for validation. And they're like, absolutely not. Please tell them. We will give them as much validation because it's just fun. It is fun to get the signs. It is fun to have them
Mm-hmm.
come through. My grandma has like kept on going with the signs, and she has brought through really, really powerful signs since she passed. And somebody in our family is going through something very, very major, and it has us all have anxiety and concern. And she got, this appointment date, and out of all of the days, months in advance, it fell on my grandma's birthday. And it was just
Oh,
like total peace for the entire family, just right off the bat. Like everything is going to be okay. Grandma's got this. She's speaking, through signs and symbols. um I want to hear your stories because I know that you have some angel stories that your dad has brought through.
yeah. Honestly, it's been an amazing journey since he passed. And I am going to write a book. I have had so many people tell me I need to write a book.
Yes.
But he was an interesting guy. So he was very smart. He was a part of Mensa. Not sure if you know what
I don't
Mensa
know what that
is.
is.
It's like an IQ club, and only like a certain percentage of the world is in it. So like Elon Musk is in it. Not saying he's like Elon
Right.
Musk, but like those are some of like the famous names you would hear in Mensa. So when he was a doctor, so he was triple board certified. So he was three different types. He did anesthesia, pain management, and internal medicine. And he passed unexpectedly. During COVID, he was a travel doctor, and he was in a travel assignment in Arkansas, and I'm in Maine. So it was very far away when he passed. But the second I found out that he had passed, my whole family and I joked, we're like, he is so smart. If there is a way, he will find it and he will master it to communicate with us. Like there's no doubt in my mind. So my brother and I, we flew out to Arkansas and we gathered his things and we drove home, and he, we got home and we realized that there was like this really rare, it was a Russian eagle. It's called a Steller sea eagle in Maine. So it was interesting because this the Steller sea eagle from Russia stopped in Texas, where my dad was technically a resident of when he passed. That was his state of residence. It then stopped in Massachusetts, where he was born and all of his family lives. And then it landed, I kid you not, on the same beach in Maine that he used to take us to summer at every summer in Georgetown. And it stayed there for like 2 months. And so my aunt called me and she goes, "Hey, Jenna, I'm not sure if you know, but this rare Russian eagle showed up in Georgetown the day that your dad died." And the funny thing about it being Russian is my dad spoke Russian. And he loved the Russian ladies. We almost had a mail order bride at one point. So he was one of those kind of guys. But so we always related the Steller sea eagle with him, and it stayed for like a couple months and then it left. And it was really cool because a lot of people from like New England traveled like hours to get a picture of this bird, and it was on the news every day. So like every day you'd wake up, you'd see the news, and you'd say, "Oh, the Steller sea eagle's still in Maine," and I'd be like, "Okay, thanks, Dad." So he passed away on New Year's Eve, and his birthday it's February 27th, so 227, which I see 227 everywhere all the time. But this year was a year mark of his passing. And on February 1st or 2nd, or one of the first 2 days in February, that eagle, the same type of eagle, came back in Maine, and it landed on the same beach. It's back again for like times two. So like once is enough. And I was really dreading his birthday this year. I'm not going to lie, just because it's just like another year has passed. Like makes you really think about it. But it stayed. I think it actually still might be here. I haven't heard that it's left.
That's
so
amazing.
The Russian eagle is back a little over a year since he passed, and a year to his birthday. So I thought that was really cool.
That is incredible.
I just love him. And he was aggressive, like Italian, Boston, he was in the military, physician. Like that was just his style. And I knew that he wouldn't show up as like a cardinal. Like a cardinal doesn't suit him. Like he came as a rare Russian raptor, and he came twice.
That is amazing.
I love him.
Yes.
Yeah. One other story that I find really cool about him is when he passed, of course, there's a lot of expenses that come with someone passing, and I'm the child, and he's not married, so the expenses fell on to me. And like, an autopsy is a few $1,000s, funeral, getting his body from Arkansas back into New England was crazy. And I racked up my credit card bills. So at this time, I left the hospital for a little bit to work in an office. And, nurses were in a union. We talk about all the benefits. We talk about our pay. We don't shy away from anything. So we always talk about like our retirement accounts and what we contribute and what's the best way to kind of like work the system. So I knew that we all had a 403B, which was nice. What I didn't know is that we had a pension. Mm-hmm. I had never heard any of the nurses, and I worked there for a long time. Any of the nurses bring up a pension that was never in the gossip. I don't remember signing anything. Like when you sign on, I don't remember signing anything about a pension. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, all the costs from my dad's stuff ended up being around $8,500. And I was talking to my husband. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay off these credit card bills. This is ridiculous. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from the hospital that I work at, and it says, call Bluefin Company, like in order to take care of the pension that you had, whatever. So I texted my old charge nurse and I was like, hey, like, is it true we have a pension at Eastern Maine? I've never heard anyone talk about it. I thought it was kind of spam mail at first.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never heard of it, but why don't you reach out to HR? So I called HR and they were like, actually, in 2015, we quietly started a pension program and you have to be vetted into the program. You have to work here for 4 years in order to get the benefits of the pension. And I asked them, I was like, so how long did I work at the hospital before I quit? And it was 4 years and 1 week. And I kid you not, it was like $8,700. Well, it was more than that, but by the time I cashed it out, because they take so many taxes, it ended up being like the exact amount I needed to pay off my credit card bills from my dad's expenses. So that was just like a check out of the blue of a program that I had never heard of, or any of my nursing friends had never heard of, just to help pay for the expenses. Because that was the thing that was stressing me out the most, honestly, was like, how am I going to get these credit card bills down? Because it takes so long to have access to any of the funds or anything, you know? So
Yeah.
those are two of my favorite stories about him.
Wow.
I could go on and on and on, but
That is incredible. I love your stories. Your dad comes through as just such a powerhouse from the other side. He is so good at bringing through those signs. And I love that you said that, your dad wouldn't come through as a cardinal because that just like wasn't his energy, which is so true. And it's funny because it's not only that, but sometimes there are people who maybe believe more, and there's some people who are more skeptical, right? And so my daughter all the time asks my dad to come through as different color birds. She's like, cardinals are just, we see them all the time because I see them all the time. And we've started getting all of these multicolored birds flying into the yard. At first she was on yellow birds and now it's bluebirds. We see bluebirds all the time, but you can know that their energy would be different, and that's why they're coming through in a different form. And sometimes if you just need more validation, you can ask for the sign that it is that you want to see and know that they will show up for you.
Actually, I have to tell you this quick
Yeah.
one. My dad was very much into Bigfoot, and he used to call it squatching. He would go out into the woods and like look for signs of Bigfoot because he had nothing better to do. And he was also like a huge ski bum. Like we grew up skiing all over the country. So for his birthday, I had actually asked, Dad, like, I know this is gonna be hard, but I want to see Bigfoot skiing. Like, let's see it. So it was like a little bit before his birthday, maybe like a week before his birthday. One of my friend's boyfriends posted a picture. He was skiing out in Lake Tahoe, and on the mountain there was a Bigfoot sculpture, and he took a selfie with it, and he tagged it at the ski resort. And I'm like, okay, that is probably as close as we're gonna get. I'll accept it. But I just thought that was so weird that there was a Bigfoot statue where my friend was skiing and he took a selfie with it. So,
and there's no way, like, you didn't tell him or anything. It was just that you took a picture of it.
I called him after. His name's Madison. I was like, Madison, you'll never guess what you just did for me.
That's amazing.
You can ask for signs and they will show up. It's cool.
Yeah, 100%. Jenna, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for being a nurse and doing everything, like all the work that you've done in nursing in the past. And thank you to all the nurses out there, because that is a hard job. I could feel the heavier energy as you were talking about working on that floor with that first story. And nurses just don't get thanked enough. So if everybody can show their gratitude and send love to all of the nurses in the world, I think that we can help the angels in supporting them today. Thank you for listening. And Jenna, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do too, because it's helped me so much, and I'm sure it's helped so many others. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Beautiful soul, thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Julie. You know I'm all about connecting you with messages from your angels and loved ones on the other side. If you've been listening today and you're super excited and just have to know which angels are around you right now, who's connecting with you, and what messages they have for you, go to theangelmedium.com. Register for a session. You can do a reading with me or a member of my team, and we can help you in making sure that your angels are doing the very best they can to support you and guide you to your best life. If this sounds like you, virtual sessions, they're only offered on my website. Sign up today. And if you're the person who's really excited, you can sign up for my Angel Reiki School to become a certified angel messenger. That's for the healers among us who feel called to grow their intuition to the max and serve humanity with their gifts. You'll learn Reiki, mediumship, how to deliver angel messages, and how to get clients. That's the Angel Reiki School at theangelmedium.com, or DM me on Instagram at Angel Podcast with any questions. Before you go, connect with your angels by placing your hands on your heart. Take a deep breath. Imagine a doorway filled with God's unconditional love is right in front of you. Step into that love and feel it as it fills your body, chakras, and auric field. Now ask your angels, what would you have me know today? And open yourself to the positive, loving messages they have just for you.